Yeah, they've grown. They've gained 2 pounds in 4 weeks, so not too bad. That's a good way to put it.
We're good. Okay, welcome. This is the Camden Planning Board meeting of Wednesday, April 5, 2023. It is a continuation of preliminary plan review. Before we start, I'd just like to ask if there's any public comment on non-agenda items. Anyone from the board? Anyone else? I don't see any. Okay. So we're back to reviewing the preliminary plan for the Nordhaven Camden LLC development at 440 Belfast Road. Thus far, we have completed a waiver request and authorized that. And we've reviewed the submissions of Appendix C. So right now, we're moving into the public hearing portion just right up because we continued that. We did take some comments at the last meeting, but they were generally sort of just for the information of the applicant and the board. So this is now where we go on the full record. Anyone who wishes to comment will come up to the podium here and state your name and address. And I'll give you the basics for the public hearing. We'll have Jeremy introduce the application just very briefly. He'll say just a couple words. I think we've already heard from the applicant, right? So we don't need to repeat that whole thing. And then the public will be invited to speak. So it'll be pretty quick. Just Jeremy, a couple words, and then we'll get the public up here to give their comments.
Sure. And like you said, Ethan, this is a continued meeting from last week. This is an application under Chapter 235, subdivision of land, as well as an open space subdivision under Chapter 290. The applicant is Nordhaven Camden LLC. Their agent is Gartley and Dorsky. And we got Will Gartley here today. The property address is 440 Belfast Road. That's map 134, lot 1 in the coastal residential zone. And the applicants are asking for permission to develop a 10-unit open space subdivision that includes 1 existing residence and 9 new single-family homes on 43 plus or minus acres off of Route 1. Again, this is continued from March 29th, 2023. And this is to complete the preliminary review. And again, as you said, Ethan, this is to take public comment as part of the public hearing, and then to go through the preliminary plan review, primarily the approval criteria that you did review all last week. And we did do waivers, et cetera, last week. You did find it complete as well. And again, really the purpose of preliminary plan is to provide enough information to the board for preliminary determination that the proposed subdivision will meet the approval standards of Article 8 and Title 30A, MRSA 4401. That's where we are. Okay, we do have, we are on Zoom as well, and I do know that there's somebody on Zoom. So we'll just keep that person there. I believe he's with the state parks.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Yep.
So will you now invite any comment from the public? And Jeannie would like you to sign in on the paper and state your,
That's green.
yeah, and you got to press the button to make that green when you're ready.
Bruce Tolman.
Real quick while you, sorry. I didn't go through the whole process, but we will have an open public comment. Then there'll be opportunity for the board to ask questions to the applicant and the commenters. Then we'll close the first public comment, have an opportunity for the board. Then we'll open a second session for any new information. So there will be 2 opportunities to speak if there's new information, and then we'll close that period and then we'll deliberate.
Okay.
Just wanted to get that out. Thanks.
All right. Bruce Tolman, 520 Belfast Road. I don't want to sound like a broken record because I was here last week, but the family has owned this property adjacent to this development for 70 years, and we've maintained Springbrook Trail mainly so we can get up to our wood lot and cut wood, recreate, hunt, and a lot of it is for fire because there's not a lot of access into the center of the park. And the park is on the west side, we're on the east side, and pretty much the park is around us. So that was one of our big concerns. So we've always kept that open. With this project, it seems like there's going to be a lot of traffic volume coming in from the potential condominiums. And, it's going to be something that, this is over 800 feet of it is on our property. And I don't know, there was a lot of thought put into that. And I just hope they don't use this as a bargaining thing or whatever, as far as, oh, come in, you can go right into the state park. Well, it's not quite that simple because you have to cross our property. So that was one of our concerns. The other is also, that we hunt and fish and trap up there. And, if you walked up the trail, you wouldn't know the difference between the west side and the east side. It looks all the same. So people would obviously going to wander off onto our property. I mean, it's just common sense. And I don't want to put, for over a mile of trail, I don't want to have to put signs on the east side saying private property. That's not what we're about. But I just feel like we would lose total control on who's wandering around on our property. As far as that goes, it's definitely, I know it's going to have an impact on the deer. I mean, I've lived up there almost all my life, and I know how the deer travel and stuff, and it's definitely going to impact them. Their travels. I mean, there's places where they do winter up in that area, but down here on the coast, it's a little bit different. I don't know what you call them wintering areas because our winters aren't as severe as they are up north. There's areas that they frequent quite a bit, and places that they go get away from predators. It's high up on a knoll, and Springbrook is on the other side. And it's a big ravine that goes down there, and they do that purposely because they know nothing's going to come up that side, and on the other side they can stay there and watch and see if anything comes up through. And it's heavily forested on the top. It's got a lot of pine and spruce, and I think a couple of hemlock up there. In the brook itself, I mean, I've fished that brook since I was, 7, 8 years old. And I've seen brook trout 3/4 of the way to the waterfall. And don't ask me how they get there, because from the road on the other side, it's a very steep, but I've actually seen them up in there. And then in the summertime, when the stream dries up, the fish don't leave. They go into these deeper pools, more colder and well oxygenated. And a couple of times I've actually seen a mink in there and they fish them right out because there's no place for them to go. They're trying to trap there. I'm just concerned about, maybe a runoff and what would happen to that brook, with this construction. Other than that, it's like, it's just going to be a big change for us. And I've had a lot of people that use our property and hike up through there, and they're saying, what is all these hundreds of ribbons hanging off the trees? And I said, well, I guess some of them are marking different things, and some of the trees have a lot of blue on them. And I said, I understand those are the ones that come down. So there's a big contrast between one side and the other. And it's just going to change. And we're just, concerned because it's going to affect us more so than any abutting landowner. So other than that, it's as you can probably tell, I'm not in favor of it. There's not much I can do about it, but I'm just telling you what I know with that area up there. So, but thank you for letting me speak. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, I am Chris Nolan. Use your pen for a second. And I am on Claybrook Road in Camden. And I'm here to support Bruce Tolman because I'm one of the few people who he allows into his property to go ahead and use his property with respect as any neighbor would. And I'm also a former state park employee in the 80s. Actually met my wife there. She was the person in the booth and I was doing the labor work. And I also did ask, because I thought it would be relevant, because I can't and don't intend to speak for the state park, but I understand as an abutter and in talking with the current manager that I thought it would be best for the state park to have a representative here too, who could, as an abutter, speak to any issues or concerns they might or might not have concerning the intention of the development and its use. As I did state before during the other session, the old maps, which I shared with Jeremy, one of the copies of the old maps, it shows Springbrook Trail and Claybrook Trail, both of which trails traverse Bruce's property. And in fact, it was his grandfather who made the Claybrook Trail signs that you see that are in the black print. What I do to enable my use of his land is I work closely with Bruce. I make sure that I am not in his property prior to turkey season, during turkey season, same for all the different deer seasons. Sometimes he has to remind me. And I do also have dogs that I walk up there, very well-behaved black labs who behave like black labs do. But I have to make sure that I stay away from his trapping area, that I also respect the land when it's mud season, that I don't go up there. I mean, even though if need be, I could go up there with my vehicle if it was a particular rescue mission that I had to do, for if somebody was hurt, yes. But it's not something that we do as a matter of being neighborly and respectful to his property. I understand that certainly an owner of their land can do with it mostly what they please, as long as it is within, the EPA and such. We get that. Given that part of the beauty of that development is its proximity to the state park, and also, the activities that go on the neighboring properties, it's just good for the developer and the planning board to understand the implications that it has on the neighbors, being Bruce primarily, and the state park. So, are there any questions? If not, probably it's a good time for the state park person.
Yeah. Not at this moment, but thank you. If we have questions, we'll do it after the close of the first public comment. So do we have someone from the state park?
He's here.
I'm here.
Did you want to give some comment?
I was going to share my video, but it seemed to be. Give me a second. All right, can you guys see me now?
See you, yep.
All right. A couple things that I've gone over with the central office in Augusta.
If you could just, I'm sorry, if you could just state your name and your position with for the record.
I'm Matthew Hamilton. I'm the regional park manager. I oversee Camden Hills and several other northern region parks. Spoke with the central office about this issue. I've also spoken with the Nord Haven group as they've been developing their plans. And we've been in general discussions about special access to the park from the old Springbrook Trail. A couple of things that would be part of that agreement, which is just preliminary at this point, not agreed upon, is that there would not be a public trailhead here. The access would be only for the renters for Nord Haven, and Like I said, no current agreement stands. So once they actually develop the property, then we would work after the fact to develop a plan for special access that they would like. We are not willing to do any kind of an agreement that would go over an abutting landowner's land without a deeded easement. So that we don't want that kind of issue where an abutter and restrict that access. That would be completely from the Nordhaven land to state park land, and other additional details we would work out. But in general, we have commercial license agreements with many organizations for either special access or special events, stuff like that. In general, we're not opposed to special access, although we do try to limit the number of access points, especially at Camden Hills, where we have far too many. But where this was a previous trailhead that had problems being right on Route 1, we have looked at this as an option with the Nordhaven group. That's all I have for public comment.
Thank you, Matthew. Very helpful. Is there anybody else who wants to give any public comment? Jeremy, do you have anything online or anything else? No. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the first public comment period. It's now the opportunity for the board to ask questions of the applicant or the commenters. Anyone? I mean, I guess I have one. Bruce, would you mind just coming up to the podium? Sorry, just as Mark was grabbing his, maybe you guys can share that one over there. I think you got from the prior hearing, the board taking your concerns very seriously, and the applicant too acknowledging that there's private property involved and there's an issue here.
Yep.
Yeah, you heard Matthew speak to a deeded easement as one option. That's something you could negotiate with the Nordhaven group for a price or for some sort of exchange. I don't know. But what I want to get to is, excuse me, you mentioned that, you don't want to be putting signage up and everything. Is there, let's just say the goal is to keep people off your land, period, flat. Okay, that's what you want. And not to use any part of the Springbrook Trail that crosses your property.
Right.
And to keep people so that you feel you can do what you want and you don't have to worry about people's safety and liability and all those things. Is there signage that the applicant could provide, not you, but the applicant on their land that says right at the end of their land, this is private property, do not cross? It's not you putting up no trespassing. It's actually the applicant instruct signage for them, for their own residents.
Right.
If they want to get to the part of Springbrook Trail that joins the park that isn't on your land, that's on them. But like, is there something that we can come up with from that perspective? Like, what would you want the applicant to do rather than putting the burden on you to keep that boundary line secure?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not crazy on signage myself. I mean, I do have a couple signs up just for, I've had in the past, before they discontinued Springbrook Trail, we've had people just drive up and just think, oh, I want to get into the state park, and we put by permission only. That didn't work. And then finally we just had to put no trespassing. Well, starting in September, we put all kinds of cameras up and stuff. And I've had people come up, look right at the sign and continue on. So in a way, I don't think sign's going to stop someone. If they want to do what they want to do, they're going to do it. And I just don't I don't want to have them or me put a ton of signs up, because it just takes away from it. Just kind of like all the ribbons and all the painted trees and stuff. It's just not the same, you could put the signs up, but I'd almost guarantee it's not going to keep them out.
Well, okay, I mean, I do think that there's a couple things. I think there's going to be a difference between the people who come into this complex, who are informed ahead of time. This is, there's some issue with the private property next door. I mean, the applicant has already said that they would make sure that that was clear.
Yeah.
And we can, as the board, can even put, requirements and conditions that they put something into the documents for people who join the homeowners association, that they know they are not entitled to use that trail that looks like a great trail.
Right.
You know, so we can work. I'm just trying to work with you on that issue. I do think that people who come into this development who are alerted ahead of time and purchasing, knowing that that's the case, they're put on notice at the beginning. I do think they would respect that.
Yeah.
I understand that there's a concern that people who just show up and say, do not trespass, and like, nobody's around, I'm just going to keep going.
Right.
Whatever. I know this goes through to the park, I'm just going to keep going, whatever. But I do think there's a difference if we give, prior notice that they purchase this land with the notice that they do not have access to that trail.
Right.
So I'm trying to get to a point where we obviously don't want to put up a fence.
No,
right?
no.
And signage is not ideal. I hear you.
Right.
It does, but if the signage is not on your property and it's not facing even your property, but it's actually before say it's 10 feet before where the trail would, intersect your property, and it's only on their property facing away from you, would that, do you think?
I mean, that'd be satisfactory. I mean, but there's still a lot that goes with it. It's like, the people are going to follow the trail. Well, are they going to allow pets? And I think in the state park, if you have a pet, you have to have it on a leash.
Right.
And so is this still all going to apply? And are these people going to know all these rules for the state park as well as, on my property too?
Right. And I think that's those are the questions that we need to hear from you.
Yep.
That we can then convey to the applicant, and the applicant is here, obviously. My general understanding of pet owners is that if they know that there's someone who's trapping, they don't want their dogs off leash, right? Because that's a bad scenario for everybody.
Yep.
So if they know that there's, potential for trapping, potential for even just, off-season firing range,
Yep.
whatever things that you're entitled to do on your land,
Yep.
they need to know that their dogs need to be controlled and not allowed to run free across that line.
Right.
They are
No.
not on your property. They should never be on your property.
Yep.
I mean, that's normal.
Right.
But even in your case, it's more specifically serious.
Yeah.
And so we're here to sort of work out, I want to set us up for a situation where, they say good fences make good neighbors, whatever. But I want to get the situation where you feel confident and the applicant feels confident what is expected.
Right.
And that we as a board put those things into whatever conditions we need so that everybody feels that they're understood and protected.
Yeah. I think if that was all in writing and stuff, I mean, I think that's the best I can ask for, really, and don't get me wrong, I love dogs.
No,
It's just that, their common thing is to smell scents and stuff. And
I have
just,
2 hounds and I never can take them off leash because it's just, I'll be running after them for days.
So I understand that, but I just, they need to also know all the rules and regulations for the state park and what they require.
Which is on
too.
leash anyway.
Right,
And so,
right.
right. And so, yeah.
No, I would be fine with that. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Lucia.
Yeah, I have a quick question. So the trail, is it a visible trail?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
is it just people so is there some way that ecologically that trail can be stopped or covered up, 20 feet before the property line, or so that it does not appear to be a trail?
Well, we use that trail from Route 1 all the way up to the top end of our property, which is,
You will continue to use
yes,
the trail.
because we access the top end of our property, which goes right into the state park. We go to the east.
Okay.
So we continue to use that, and we keep it maintained, we keep it open. And like I say, for emergency reasons, if they had to get like a Jeep or something up there for a lost hiker or something, you could do it. And we keep it open, and we don't have a problem to continue doing that. Because I mean, that's, and fire is a big thing. It's like, I'm just so nervous if someone's up there smoking, and it's like, it's my biggest fear.
So I have another question for the applicant. Down at the entrance to the road, is there going to be a private development sign or something that says private where the public will not go in there and access the trail like they have been?
Yes, there'll be an indication that it's a private resort style.
So refresh my memory. The trail starts on Nordhaven property?
There are two. I think what we're talking about, the confusing piece is the Springbrook Trail is on your property where it starts coming up from your property. There's the trail that comes out of Nordhaven from the sauna up through the woods.
Yeah, but that's totally separate.
That's not this trail.
But it makes a T-junction basically just over the property line.
Yeah. But I'm looking at the origin of the trail from Route 1.
Right,
So
but
the Springbrook runs along our property line, and the actual ownership of the trail itself is a long story, so probably want to save that part. But Springbrook then enters our property. Okay, so what he's using is on our property. And then it proceeds into the park. Okay, so it goes from 440 Belfast into the park, and then it proceeds in the park, and then it exits the park into Bruce's property, and then it goes back into the park.
Right.
And there really is no, that I'm aware of, Route 1 start to it that's meaningful. I mean, there were probably old rights of way and.
Yeah, there always used to be signs down there, Springbrook Trail, but over time there's no parking. So people trying to, get in off the road and you can on Route 1.
But
There's no evidence if you're driving down
Right.
Route 1 that there's a trail there.
to my mind, the people who are living in a resident of the Nordhaven, the most likely place that they're going to access this is at that coming up from the, they're going to walk up. I mean, what we're talking about, we have limited things that we can do on the application to limit any of this, but the public, that's a whole different thing. But where the folks who have bought units are most likely to access the trail, thinking about going to the park as it is now, because it looks like it is going up the Woods Road from the sauna.
Two ways, that way and along the actual Springbrook Trail that runs along the edge of the property.
Right,
Would
but
be the other logical way that people would go.
I'm just because of the way that trail already is in the sauna, like that's the place that most people I would imagine walking down the river and then going up there. And that's also just where I would think there would be the possibility of putting some physical barrier, something there of a delineation about reminders of property and without necessarily doing lots of no trespassing signs along property lines. That's what I'm.
The thing is the connection where it goes, the tricky part is the connection where it goes into Bruce's property is from the park.
Right.
Right, so we can't put signs up in the park that say.
But I'm just thinking that little corner, right, where it is where it's still on your land, that might be.
Where you would turn and go back down towards Route 1?
No,
Yeah.
I think he's talking about you come up and then continue on the state park, Springbrook Trail and head up. Yeah.
That upper corner. There's
that little spur on our.
right. There's a little, but I'm just thinking that,
Yeah.
C1.
that might be a place that you could put something
Yeah, we could definitely put signs.
that would be there. That would just be like a terminus of that trail and then maybe rethink how the access to the state park is done.
Ultimately, it might not work. I mean, we might not be able to, come
Right.
to an agreement with the park.
Right. And it might be that there's an easier access point.
Commercial licenses, because we'd have to create or resurrect an older trail somewhere else.
Right.
That's not Springbrook Trail.
Yeah.
For our
that's,
residents
yeah,
to,
that's definitely something we're looking at. I mean, I'm sure you're looking at. So Bruce, are you using the existing trail that runs over the applicant's property? Do you use that regularly?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
And are you hoping to continue to use that?
Yes, that's how we access. I think we actually have a deeded right of way to use that Woods Trail to get up to our property.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you don't think that's the case?
No. Not deeded right away.
Okay.
Hasn't
So-
appeared on any survey or any.
I think I actually have some paperwork that might say that. So sometime we could get together, I'll bring that
Yeah,
paperwork,
sure.
yep.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
way back when, but I think it's from Dean. I think,
yeah.
or
So this,
Dean or Godso, one or the other, I'm not
yeah,
sure.
so this is pretty complicated stuff, and probably not within the purview of the planning board at this point. But you know,
I'm sorry, Dave.
go ahead.
I mean, we're not trying to object to, Bruce's continued use of the trail. I mean, we're
Right.
happy to let him to continue to use it. We were hoping that he would allow us to use his section of the trail
Right.
for residents representing 9 homes, which we don't think is a lot.
Yeah.
To access
9,
the
which
park.
could be 30.
I mean, ultimately it could be.
Right. I mean, just to be fair, but this is sort of where I'm going, and I appreciate your input. But I am sort of looking at this and saying, Bruce, if you can get to a point where for continued use of the trail across the property that the applicant owns, there's a little quid pro quo for them to be able to cross over your lot. If they can get to the point of Mr. Nolan's like understanding of when and how,
Yeah.
and feeling that that's going to be respected and all of those things, that's my encouragement, because this is really complicated stuff. And believe me, I'm an attorney, and some of the worst cases I've ever dealt with are land disputes with neighbors. It just gets brutal.
Right.
And so I encourage sort of an open mind to this whole solution. The planning board can do what it can do, and that includes like saying we can, have them put up signing where it comes to your land.
Yep.
But he's even saying that that's, the state park land. I've got the state park person here. We can ask him about whether they will post it,
Right.
that kind of stuff. But if we're talking about them on you're on their land, them on your land, and we know your concerns. Nobody's even questioning like what your concerns are. They're completely valid. But I do, when you have 9 homes, I do think we're talking about a pretty minimal use. If it gets to 30, I can see it being a little more significant.
Right.
But even if you had 30 homes there, how often are people going to literally be crossing your land, to get to the state park, a couple times a summer?
Yeah.
That's what I would think. I don't think you're going to have this influx of like constant, but I can't predict that.
Right,
So I
right.
understand that there's open. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was just gonna say, I just go back to the fact that I think it is the neighbors with neighbors, and that I know we talked last week a little bit about maybe putting some language in the homeowners association paperwork about access. And I'm thinking like my family have a trail that accesses a land trust preserve, and it comes through our blueberry fields.
Mhm.
And we have very clear signage saying, there's no signage on the trail, but there's signage when you get there that it is a working blueberry field, so stay on the trail. And I think that language could be, reiterated, and most people who live in these community are going to say, we're aware that the neighbors hunt and trap and shoot,
Yep.
and so no, we're not going to go in there. And most of us are pretty good about doing that when it's, and again, it's the broader public, that's beyond any of our.
Right. I mean, that's a
But I
big
think-
concern. I'm good with that. It's just, I hate to have something happen just because, oh, well, I didn't know this wasn't part of the state park, or I didn't know this was part of their land. So that's my
Right.
main concern, because we've never had to worry about that. And now things are going to change as far as.
Well, I mean, it's not exactly true that you haven't had to worry about it, because you have people going up there anyway.
Yeah, but now I
You've got it
know.
kind of, minimized. I
Yeah.
get that part of it. But earlier it was a problem.
Yeah.
And
It
so,
was.
we're looking at the same thing. And I think here we can have a more informed group,
Mhm.
right? Because they're going to be signing papers and it's going to be made clear. We can even have them require an initial of that section of the document
Yeah.
that says,
Right.
I recognize that this is, this trail is not to be used during these seasons, whatever. So is there a way for you to give us any of that? Or is it?
Yeah, that would work. I'm just, like I say, the big thing it's going from knowing who's there, from not knowing who's there.
Yeah.
That's our big thing. And then, like I stated before, with the firearms and stuff like that, it's like, we don't want anything like to happen,
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, I'd agree to that. The only thing I was concerned about, though, if the state park allows them to go up into the state park, up onto the carriage road, what is stopping the people from the state park who've paid coming in from another area to come down that trail
Yeah,
and then wander? I mean, you're kind of creating a double.
right. And this is going to be my question. If we still have Matthew on the Zoom, is he still here? Yeah. So I was going to ask some questions of him next. So, because I
How would
realized.
you regulate that?
Right. Well, I mean, regulation is hard, but then putting up signage is not. So that's the thing I think we
We're
need to
also getting
address.
out of anything that we really have.
Well, yeah, I mean, I hear you, but we have the people here, so I'm actually
Yeah,
inclined to kind of like,
I want to hear concerns, but.
yeah. So,
Can I
yeah,
offer
you may.
something? So the trail already exists
Mhm.
from the state park into Bruce's land. So we're not proposing to change any of that. So the worry about people coming down from the park into your land is a pre-existing condition. I don't think anything that we do is changing that.
Fair, unless there's people actually from your land walking down that trail, and then other people say, "Oh, look, there's people walking down that trail," and they just follow it. But I mean, we are getting to a point of splitting hairs, so I don't want to get into it too much.
I mean, people, we have land, and I find people on our land who don't have permission to be there, and they look at me and they say, "Well, why are you on the land?" And I said, "Well, because my family owned the land." I mean, there's only so much that any of us can do. You have the park. How many times have we been in the state park and seen dogs not on leashes?
Yeah.
All the time. Like,
Yeah.
could they run off? Like, so there's a little bit of what we can and can't.
Yeah.
Regulate. I guess.
So I guess I do want to, Matthew, if you're still there, I see you. If you were to come to a licensing agreement with a commercial license agreement with the applicant, is there, in your mind, effective signage that could be put at that juncture where the basically the public access ends and it gets to, or are you saying that you wouldn't even do a licensing agreement unless there was a deeded access to Bruce's land for the applicant?
Well, I guess that's two questions. We would not
Yes.
do an agreement with them unless there was an agreement between the two landowners. If there was an agreement, we have standard signage. The one that pops into my head, the clearest is it says park boundary, please respect private property. We have that in several locations. That's something we would put before the property line so that anybody coming in from the park towards the Nordhaven property and the abutters would know that they are leaving the park. And the other thing with that is we have a new marking system at the park where each trail has a colored shape that is denoted on the trail map. So Springbrook Trail does not have a special colored shape. So it would be fairly obvious to everyone who has a map that this is not a normal trail at the park. It's not a trail that we are sponsoring and wanting people to go on, because there's lots of trails that are in the park that people have just made on their own, and we're just not signing those in general.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Matthew. Go ahead.
Just to chime in on one of the previous comments was the Nordhaven group and I already talked about the need for rules to be given and or posted so their guests are very aware of state park rules, and I think we're both in agreement about that being a priority, just so they know what they're getting into as they have special access, if they have special access.
Great. Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for the applicants or the commenters? Go ahead.
I'll have a comment. I appreciate Bruce's concern and Chris's concern. But I don't necessarily know what we can do as a planning board to address the behavior of people. I'd go along if somebody came up with a particular condition requiring a certain kind of signage at the T intersection from the applicant's property to the park. And, you know, I certainly encourage the neighbors to continue their dialogue with each other, but I'm not quite sure that it's within our purview to insert ourselves much further into the discussion.
Thanks, John. Anyone else? This moment? Okay. Then we will now, go ahead, you can
Okay.
sit there. Thank you very much, Bruce. Really appreciate it. We are opening now the second public comment period. So if anybody has any additional new information they'd like to bring up, then please come on up to the podium. New stuff. That's what I said, isn't it?
I just have one quick question. I wasn't sure, and nor was Bruce sure, what was meant during the last meeting with the discussion about if this goes from 9 cabins to 30 cabins, given that it is not actually a lot, LOT, increase, would going from 9 cabins to 30 cabins come back to the planning board or not?
Yeah,
Oh,
and that's,
absolutely.
yeah, so even just one new cabin would come back to the board for full review. So there's no expansion of the project without board review.
And another, I mean, just to clarify, another one, you know, they're up along, getting up to beyond and almost to an acre of impervious. So it would also require new DEP permitting and all of that. So I think we're
Okay,
plenty of review beyond this, should it go forward.
thanks, Jeremy. Okay, so anyone else with additional new public comment? Matthew, you all set? All right, thanks so much for coming. I really appreciate it. It's helpful. And thanks to both of you for your comments and everything. I'm going to go ahead and close the second public comment period.
Can I throw something out there?
You can.
I'm sorry. Where was I? I just wanted to clarify if possible, and I think Lucia brought it up last time, was the, I'm having a hard time getting the right plan on Zoom, so just bear with me. The property of the buffer, I'm just clarifying because we're going to probably go into approval criteria, right? After this would be my guess. And there's the property near where the septic system is proposed, right? Let me find it.
It's to the right.
Yeah,
Yeah, right there.
and but I'm just on the wrong plan. I know. I'm just on the wrong plan. And the only reason I bring it up is because I think the property owner is here right now, is in the room. So I just wanted to clarify, and again, I'm having a hard time with this, what that buffer is going to be. It just says buffer, and Lucia, I'm not sure we got the right, an exact answer. I'm just clarifying.
We did. It was an evergreen vegetated buffer.
Okay.
We haven't.
You haven't thought
spec'd the
outside of
plants
that?
yet,
Okay.
but
Height over a certain number of feet.
we haven't gotten that far.
Okay.
And you're talking about the Travis property or
The Travis property.
Yeah.
There's
On
a,
that corner?
there's a fence.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
There's a fence there and a tennis court, just
Right.
right on the
their side
line.
of the property.
Yeah. I just wanted to comment, the property owners in the room, and I don't know if they wanted some clarification, that's all.
Okay.
It shows on this plan, but, okay, that's all.
Yeah, there it is.
Right there.
Yeah. See that buffer there? I was just curious what that was going to be. Just as proposed landscape buffer, and you said evergreen. Is it a certain width? Is it a certain? You don't know
Haven't
yet.
specified it
Okay.
yet, Jeremy.
All right.
And that line with the circles is the fence on their side of the property line.
Right. Yeah.
Okay,
It's an existing fence.
all right.
When you were talking, Chriso, about the T intersection, there's actually 2 T intersections. The one T intersection is not showing on this map, but it would be if you extended that road further, that's the area that's nice and flat. And actually, as someone who walked in that area before, it's actually the preferred route because it's flat. The other side, that's also a T intersection to the other property, is much more steep. And yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
That
it's
little
on the
trail
plan.
there.
It's on the plan.
Yeah, that one there, if you were going to specify, the T intersection as far as signage, I would just recommend that that's a really obvious and nice flat path to walk, that people might choose to do that too. So that would be another spot if you're going to specify in your documents. There are actually 2 T intersections.
Can I ask another question now? I'm sorry, Ethan.
That's fine.
Sorry. I'm just looking at the contours on that septic, that toe of that slope, Will. Just curious where that's draining. It looks like it's heading towards that property a little bit.
Nope, it's heading right down the line.
This way?
All right.
Where that ties in, Jeremy, the contours are running
Okay.
almost
All right.
perpendicular to the property line.
All right.
Which means
You're-
the wa-
Towards Route 1
Right,
Yeah.
which means the water's gonna run perpendicular to the contour lines.
and not under the tennis courts.
Right.
All right.
Right. And we've got 25 feet there, basically, that
Yeah.
of that, well, that setback line is 25 feet.
Yeah.
So it'll be pretty easy to stagger some plantings in
Perfect. All
that
right.
25-foot zone.
Perfect.
Actually, think that we're showing on this plan, the vegetation barrier going around the sort of the right-hand corner.
Yeah.
I think it's more important for the barrier to go around the left-hand corner
This way?
Yeah.
than the right-hand corner. So that would be our intent, probably not at that other section.
Right.
That's-
That would actually change
There's
and
nothing, there's
extend.
nothing over there.
we
So
can fix
I
that.
think that really it wants to wrap that corner closer to where that driveway is.
And Jeremy, did you have any suggestions in your experience as to what the buffer should consist of, or
Yeah, no, I mean,
just assume that it's going to be sufficient?
yeah.
Can I just comment?
Sure.
Probably not cedar because the deer,
Right.
probably not cedar because the deer will eat it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and it'll be
I
gone.
think we've got a very capable landscape designer who is a specialist in native flora and fauna. And he'll figure out what the best option is for that. It
Right.
might be a layered
Yeah.
type of screen to create the best visual
Yeah.
barrier.
Okay. All right. Any further public comments before I go ahead and close this?
So
Okay.
will you show that change on the plan?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
The final plan, yep.
Coming around the other corner.
And does that make sense? Just, you see this buffer? This is your property here, right?
That's my property.
Yeah. And right now, this buffer shows this coming around this corner.
Right.
The applicant seems to think it would benefit you more if it came around this corner?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And our property, you can see our house through that area. So if you went all the way along the backside of our property there, it would make a lot more sense as a visual barrier for our property as well as the residents that are going to be living in.
All right. So we'll at least get it up this side.
So it's
Does that
just,
sound
so it's to
good?
screen from their place.
Maybe you guys can work, Will, just so sight distances maybe protect this area from view too. You know what I mean? I'm just throwing it out there. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. No further comments. I'm going to go ahead and close the second public comment period. And now, the board will begin deliberation, and I guess we're just picking up a little bit of where we left off. As Jeremy noted, we found the application complete and
Compliant with open space as well.
compliant with open space. And we did discuss the waiver and approve. So that leads us to looking again at some of the criteria. And we discussed some conditions generally, but we didn't get into detail. So I guess with Jeannie's fantastic guidance, we have kind of a list of some of the conditions that we discussed. And I think it's time now for the board to discuss these in order. If you're
Well,
following.
I guess I would probably go through the
We
approval
did-
criteria.
we went
You're
through
good with
them all. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, okay.
yeah, we went through all of those, so I feel like we've kind of, we got a handle on that. I didn't read every single one into the record. I started that way, and then I was kicked off that
We
plan.
trimmed it down.
Yeah, we started to abbreviate as time got long, but we did get through them all, and we feel pretty good about that. It's been discussed. So I do want to just bring up. I'm just going to go with Jeannie's list here, which is extremely helpful. But the first would be we're on the backside of the process agenda. And the first one was the stormwater agreement being added in its entirety to the plan. And I saw something come through with the new revised response from our independent expert. Jeremy, do you want to speak to that real quickly?
Hang on. This is, I have an email, so if you want to.
I mean, I could just comment that, and this is about the stormwater. This is Cumberland County Soil and Water Conservation District.
Yep.
Reviewed this, the stormwater plan and erosion control. And he provided comments,
That's a condition of approval.
he did have a recommended condition of approval to execute a stormwater management system agreement with the town of Camden, which was similar to what I was kind of suggesting. He did review and the revision, reviewed the plan revisions as well, and he finds that they meet town, state, and district standards for stormwater management and erosion sedimentation control.
And so by your agreement with the town of Camden, you mean the 1 year, 5 year review sort of certification?
Correct, and actually getting us the ability to enforce the stormwater maintenance piece.
Okay.
If I may then,
You may.
in the agenda and the memo that we received today, we're kind of marching down this list of items. And there's something towards the bottom of that starts out include a mandatory stormwater monitoring, inspection, and maintenance schedule. And if I read that, I'm kind of thinking that might be addressing the recommended condition from the consultant. Is that correct?
Makes sense to me.
Okay.
And I would say, rather than monitoring, just include inspection and maintenance schedule. I think monitoring adds a weird,
I agree.
odd terminology, because one could interpret that means you actually got to monitor water quality. So it's just inspection and maintenance.
Yeah. So, yeah, John, you're absolutely right. We can lump the first and last bullet on our unbulleted list together. Anyone else on the board? Any thoughts on this?
So you don't add the agreement to it?
Yeah, I think that they're separate. I would say they're separate items because the stormwater agreement is
Broader.
more than just the inspection routine.
Right, but I think we can discuss them in concert. Is that?
Oh,
make
yeah.
sense? Yeah, so I'm not saying that they're approved together. But yeah, so we will entertain discussion on the entire stormwater issue. But yeah, I think we do need two separate motions or a
And I think
motion
the
that
intent
addresses
of
them.
the first one there, the stormwater agreement is added to in its plan, in its entirety to the plan. I think that was getting the applicant to have a note referencing on the plan that part of this approval is the stormwater agreement and maintenance and inspections. Actually make that on the, get
To
that.
note it on the plan, right.
Add a note to the plan that'll be
Correct.
recorded.
Correct.
Add a note to the subdivision plan that'll be recorded that references the actual stormwater design? Or are you saying that note will say what the agreement is, or that they're responsible for maintaining and?
Correct.
and monitor, or not?
I think it's the latter, yeah.
Inspection and maintenance.
So
Okay.
the note it references the existence of an agreement.
Okay.
I see. Yep. So that's what the intent of the first one is just to make sure that the agreement is placed on the recorded plan, the reference to the agreement. And then, which is why I think it's, as John sort of indicated, a proper segue into the last one, which is what that agreement actually entails. We can discuss that now, even though it's out of order. Does that make
I do
sense?
think it's important to include as part of that will, because I think everyone probably realizes that HOA documents can change over time, and the municipality may not have any idea that they changed or that an HOA goes away. I mean, that happens. I think it's important to include that the inspection and maintenance piece is included in that, right? It's just not that there's a stormwater agreement out there, but they actually have to do annual maintenance and a 5-year professional recertification to the town. Does that make sense?
In the plan note.
Yes. Yes,
Mhm.
please.
And Jeremy, you had mentioned at our last meeting that these agreements are reviewed by the town attorney.
Yep, they will be, yes.
Okay.
Part of before the final review is done by you all.
That will be welcome.
Jimmy, I'm not following anymore. So you're saying that this agreement's going to be reviewed by the town attorney, so there's going to be, and that entire agreement is going to be on the subdivision plan?
No, we want a reference to that.
A reference to it?
Right.
Okay.
And gives the town the ability to enforce those
Right.
requirements.
And potentially modify it? The reason I say that is
Right.
because once we do go to DEP and get a stormwater permit, then all of a sudden we're going to have requirements that they're going to impose that could have an impact on what we've agreed to initially.
Well, I would say then if the DEP, and I've dealt with this in the past, if the DEP has reporting and maintenance requirements that are required under their laws,
Mhm.
right? Then you could just match your schedule up with our schedule, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
That's what I was hoping.
We're not trying to unduly burden.
And I don't want you guys to have to
Right.
do a 5-year research for us or an annual inspection. You know, I want them
And
to
you
be.
don't have a certification program. So when you say recertification, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about what the DEP has.
Yes.
But do you want us to reference the DEPs?
If you're, that would work fine for
Right.
me. I mean, really what I'm looking for is something that we get annually that says that the HOA, and it doesn't have to be an engineer annually, but that the HOA has
Inspected?
inspected and
Taken a few
done
photos
minor
and-
maintenance, and
Okay.
they provide that to us
All
annually.
right, I've got a.
And then every 5th year, they hire someone like yourself to come in and just say, yep, everything's checked off, we stamp it.
Yeah,
Makes
and,
sense.
and I think we are sort of, this is sort of, as we said, canary in the coal mine for you guys, but I think it's something that Jeremy's going to want to have going forward with stormwater management across the town.
Yep.
So this is something that's good to sort of iron out the wrinkles, and, your input is welcome on that. As, I trust that you and Jeremy can get together on that and work that out.
So we'll,
Garland Dorsey, full employment.
yeah, I know.
But the board will just,
Not looking for more
but the
work.
board is going to vote. I mean, this is something we need to take a vote on, right?
Mhm.
And we will vote on whether or not to require this. And, with the discussion that we've had with Jeremy, hoping that everybody understands what we're looking for. And I'll.
If something comes up in the future with DEP on their schedule and their maintenance or inspections,
Yeah.
that is wonky with ours, I would say we could just come back to the board and do a very quick minor whatever, or maybe even we can do that by staff,
By staff, right?
that we would just,
By staff.
Yeah, okay.
If they
By
want-
staff. We'll
if
just
they
match
want
it up.
4 years and.
Right.
Right.
here's to not be overly,
Maybe Chris's motion will even have a little wiggle room in there for the DEP.
he's got it.
Is he going for a
Thank you.
motion? I can see him winding
I
up.
don't know.
All right.
Well, I don't think it's, I mean,
You're not ready for a motion yet?
We've got
well,
a
we've
few
got a few
other
others
items.
to do.
Well, we're going to do them all at once, or we're going to do these?
I was gonna say we do it as. with
Well,
those conditions.
Yeah, I feel like these conditions are so independent. We might be able to do the rest together, but this one here needs some specificity. I feel like it
They're
requires its
all
own.
stormwater and erosion control related, so I think you
Yeah.
could broadly say something, Chriso, about a motion that.
Okay, we're not
includes-
there yet, so then I'll defer. Okay, yep, I'm okay with that. All right, so the second bullet point, if there's no further discussion on the stormwater, was a sequencing plan, construction sequencing plan being added to the plan. Again, this is a note on the plan. And ideally here, we're just talking about sections of the road as it progresses up towards that creek, where it's, getting closer and closer. That was something that the board was looking to ask the applicant to include. Is that any issue?
I think that
That was road construction, right?
Yeah, maybe, Will, you could do something, maybe the board could, to the satisfaction of the code and planning office, rather than actually provide us with something.
Yeah, that would be good. And my hesitation was that we've got a fair amount of coordination to do with whoever's selected as the contractor as to the sequencing of when underground utilities go in, when sections of the road are built. I mean, obviously the erosion control has to happen first.
Right.
But for me to spell it all out, there's a good chance that what's really going to happen could be different than what.
Are different, yeah, I
Right.
understand that. So I think
I
that's,
think it's-
Jeremy's suggestion is good, to the
Perfect.
satisfaction of staff. Yep.
It's mostly that we're asking to coordinate and,
Understood, yeah.
and certainly if, it's not like we're going to hold it and like, oh, no, you said that you were to do that. So, it's, hey, now we need to do.
The goal is to have everything stable and no erosion.
Right.
And so
And I've got my staff lined up. They're gonna be out there. Anybody else on the board on that one?
So the next two are combined and reworded, is that?
I think they're going to make a motion at the end that's going to.
Yeah,
We're
we're,
gonna do it all, and I'm
Right.
not gonna be able to write.
no, I know, that's what I tried, Jeannie, but I got voted down in an informal vote.
Why we record this.
Mutiny.
What if you want to change one? That's my only thought. What if the condition needs to be changed?
He's got it. Chriso's got it under control.
He's writing a bullet pointed motion. It's a lot of pressure today on Chris, so. Well, we'll see, Gene, okay? I kind of side with you, but we'll just go through and see if we can see. Yeah, I know, but we always know to listen. So now we're looking at, so the construction sequencing plan is also the staggered construction, right? So, I mean, that's really what we were doing there. Those are this one and part and parcel of the same thing. And so then the next was to employ the plastic-free stabilizing fabric and erosion controls, and that was something that you said was easy to do. The people that you use have a plastic-free version. The applicant is willing to include that or use that exclusively. And yeah, I heard something on NPR about how much plastic is floating around in the air, and it's just, and everywhere else, it's just terrible. So plastic-free, please. And then during the actual construction, applicant will hire an engineering firm to oversee and inspect all stormwater and erosion control installations. And I have a note here, daily, to continue until the project is complete. I think this speaks to our desire to make sure that this creek is protected. That's the most important part, the creek or the brook. And sometimes earth movers not being quite as, on top of that as other people. So does daily work for the board? Does that seem excessive, or is it like?
I think daily's excessive I'm not the board, but
Oh,
I
I
think
know.
daily's excessive. I think before and after storm events is
I like
the
that.
key.
Before and after storm events.
And I think you could maybe even, rather than say engineering firm, I think you could probably say qualified individual.
Qualified individual,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, could be Will every day out there.
But
But
it could be a third party, a stormwater inspector that's certified by the state to do that work, so.
Okay. So qualified individual. Anybody on the board have any comments?
No, I was going to say the same thing. I think the key on that is rain when road is under construction. I think it doesn't have to be daily. I think that the issue is, hey, there's a big storm coming. Did you leave the excavator in a pile of dirt on the road or?
Yeah. And don't forget, you invited Allison McKellar out anytime she wants.
On the record.
That I will assure you that she'll be there after a storm or during. She's our storm photographer, a town storm photographer. She does pretty good work on that. Okay, so that looks like we've covered everything on this list. So I'm going to take a deep breath and step back. Is there any more discussion? John, did you have something?
No.
Okay. Mark, anything? No. Lucia? Good. All good? Okay, well, I'll just sit back and wait for Chriso to work his magic here.
Well, I don't know why it's always.
No, it really isn't on you. Somebody else is welcome to make a motion. But
My only thought is that it's a single motion with, I think we have essentially three key conditions.
as long as Jeannie can write it down, it's good.
Well, I'll listen again.
Well, I'm going to say that the motion to approve the preliminary plan with the following conditions. That a road construction sequencing plan is attached to the satisfaction of Code Enforcement Office. That a qualified individual will oversee road construction prior to and after storm events. And that the stormwater agreement will be noted in the plan, highlighting that there will be a 1-year homeowner association inspection and 5-year engineered inspections. Reporting to the town.
And non-plastic fabric.
Oh, yes, and that they will employ plastic-free stabilizing fabric and erosion controls.
How's that work for you, Gene?
Do the stormwater thing on the plan again, please.
So the stormwater agreement will be noted on the plan, and it will include a yearly HOA inspection and a 5-year engineer inspection, which will be reported to the town.
Okay, so those details are supposed to be on the plan as well.
No, a document will be noted.
It will just be it will be noting that there exists a document and that document will contain those details.
Right, that's what I mean. That needs to be more than just referencing the document. It
Mm.
needs to be what's in the document, right?
Not on the plan, no. The plan will simply say that there's a stormwater agreement with the town
But
that
in
must be
plan,
followed,
so I'll
that gives the
clarify
town enforcement. Yeah.
that there will be the stormwater agreement will be noted on the plan. And in that stormwater agreement will be that there is a 1-year inspection by the homeowners association and a 5-year engineer inspection to the town.
That's the language to go on the plan.
Whoops. Nope, we went backwards again.
Well,
The language that goes on the plan is that there's a stormwater agreement with the town, period.
that's it?
Yeah.
And then in the stormwater agreement, there would be the 1-year and the 5-year.
So it will reference the stormwater agreement by name, and that by reference gives the town authority to enforce because it's on the
So
plan.
they're two separate conditions.
And then the condition of what's in the document itself is the 1-year, 5-year inspection.
So two separate.
Yes.
Okay,
Oh, sorry.
Does that work, Jeannie?
now it does.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion before the board. Is there a second? Or is there any discussion?
I
Quick,
have
please.
discussion. One thing, and because this is for approving the preliminary plan, right, with these conditions.
Right.
There was one thing that didn't come up, and I had talked to Will previously. I know we're not into the performance guarantees yet section, but we are in the financial and technical capacity, because that is one of the approval criteria, and we talked about that the last
Yeah.
time. I just want the board and the applicant, we don't have there's not a lot of oomph in what this standard says, right? It just says that you shall have adequate financial resources.
Right.
So I had spoken with the applicant, and his intention is to provide a letter from Machias Savings Bank, I believe, that they've got the financial based on an cost estimate that Gartley and Dorsey are preparing. They'll have a letter from Achai Savings saying they've got adequate financing to do this project. Does that suffice for you all?
It works, John?
Well, that would suffice for me. It begs the question as to whether or not there should be an additional condition
Put that condition in.
that the required submissions for final plat approval that are on the same document are conditions of the preliminary approval.
Right, so just squeak that in at the end there. Jeannie, did you hear that?
Separate.
One last clause,
Yeah, one last, a friendly amendment to
the list.
list is that the applicant provide adequate, evidence of adequate financial resources in the form of a letter from Achai Savings Bank that they,
It doesn't have to be specific. It can just-
I'd say documentation of financial capacity and
sure.
performance guarantee provided.
And the performance guarantee piece, that will come along to you in the final plan.
Right.
And Will and I have had conversations about what
Right.
that will look like.
Okay.
So.
Everybody good? Jeannie, you good?
Yep.
You guys are good? You understand what's being asked of you? Did we?
I have one question, is about the construction sequencing, the wording in your motion. It said something that it would be attached to the plan, and I didn't think that that's what we had discussed. That it would be coordinated with the planner and code enforcement.
Yeah, I didn't think we said attached to
I
the
don't think-
plan. I think we said, Jeannie can read it back. I think,
It said attached. 'Cause
Oh, well, if I did,
wrote
then I
it down.
misspoke. I probably,
yeah,
yeah, no, I
noted on the plan, right? We said that or
road
not?
construction sequencing doesn't need to be noted on the plan.
Just to the satisfaction,
It needs to
In
be
coordination with
coordinated
town.
satisfactorily.
Yeah.
excuse me, people.
If I said attached in the plan, I misspoke.
That was
Do you
my,
have that as attached or just noted that it's in coordination with the staff?
Yeah, to the
Satisfaction of staff.
satisfaction of the
Planning.
Okay, good.
Staff.
Yep.
code office.
okay.
Thank you. Yep. Okay. Any further discussion? Everybody's all set?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll take a roll call vote. Mark?
Approved?
Lucia?
Yes?
John?
Aye.
Chriso?
Aye.
And it's an aye from me. The motion carries. That is the end. I guess we have one final motion here, right? No, just the conditions, it's all done.
Yeah.
I think you just did it.
Okay,
That's
so
approval
there
of-
is one final motion,
Approval of
and
final
you know what
plan.
it is. Yeah,
In regards to the performance guarantee, so we're going to propose in our final submission what that's going to be and the amount. But the actual guarantee, which is going to be an account setup or an irrevocable letter of credit, whatever it is, we're hoping that that can be, any final approval would be conditioned upon that being delivered. Because it's not easy to get until it's approved. It's a little bit of a,
Yeah, it's one of those catch-22s. You can't get one until you're approved.
Till you have
and
one,
can't
right.
get approved till you have one. So what we would propose is that we would provide the financial guarantee ultimately following the approval.
right, and Jeremy, is that,
We can probably, Bill Kelly and I will work on that with
Okay.
them and,
Okay.
yeah, that makes sense.
but thank you for raising it.
Understood.
It's always good to have that out in front.
And it's likely to be in the form of a letter of credit from Machias. So.
Okay,
And scheduling a next meeting, I think it's probably dependent upon where you guys are, Will, on things.
I'll have,
Okay. We'll just play it by ear for right now, Jeannie.
Well, if there's gonna be a public hearing.
Right, that's a question. That's a question for the board. Do you want to have
Before final approval.
we're not required to have one.
correct.
And I do feel like we've given sort of
Multiple.
double opportunity at least, plus an informal. I'm okay with not, but I want to take the board's temperature on that. What's your feeling on whether or not we need another public hearing?
As a practical matter, isn't that just an opportunity for the public to comment?
It is. But it requires a particular notice requirements and that sort of
Formally,
thing.
I mean, that goes into the record. I mean, you always have the opportunity to take public comments, even not during the public hearing, right?
Sure, sure. It's a matter of record versus not record. I am,
And the type of notice.
yeah. I think that's the key part right here is the notice required and whether we can, call a meeting sooner or we have to wait, 14 days,
Not
right?
really, because the plan has to be in 15 days ahead.
So then we could still notice it.
Advertise.
Okay.
We have to do it now, advertise in public that it's going to be held. So,
But we don't need a date certain.
yes.
We do need a date
If
certain.
you're going to set a public hearing, then we need to select a date for the meeting. And the hearing.
Right now,
We wouldn't have to set it now if it was in
2 months.
even a
You'd
month.
have to meet again.
We would have to meet to set a hearing, is what you're.
Yeah,
My feeling is we've had multiple public hearings and input sessions. We've had the pre-app, we will have the meeting to debate it. But at this point, I don't think we need another public hearing on this, but.
We can certainly send out notices of the meeting to property owners that have been involved and have commented thus far, just so that they are aware the meeting's coming. We can do that.
we did that after the first delay. It wasn't required, but
Right.
just send them first-class letters.
Mhm.
No, the schedule changed, so.
And I'm sorry, Jeremy, you're talking about the select board.
No, you guys have your final plan review coming up after this,
Okay,
right? This
okay,
comes
that's the one you're
preliminary-
talking
Permanent time.
They're coming back to us with the final plan,
review.
and we could make that simply a meeting where we review it, or we can make it a public hearing. I don't think that we need another, I can't imagine if there's any more. And if there, as Jeremy says, we could have public comment at a meeting if there's a question, but.
If people show up.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I said, we'll send the notice to the abutters that have an interest, and probably all the abutters, and just let them know that the final plan review is happening on a certain date. Won't specifically say it's a public hearing, but it'll say that it's happening on a certain date and they can come.
That would address my concern.
Be a little concerned. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we're not going to set a date.
15 days after they
Submit.
submit their plan, then you'll know the date of the next meeting.
Right.
And it doesn't put anybody under any pressure.
Right.
And as far as we know, there's no substantial additions to this, to the next.
Nothing can really change from this. I mean, this is, preliminary review is really the kind of the
It's
nitty gritty review that is done. The final plan is just making sure all our i's are dotted, t's are crossed, the
The things we've asked for
agreements
have
are in
been
place
added.
and the documents have been reviewed by our attorney and.
If it comes back looking really different, we have a very different conversation.
The other thing we're working on is, some of the units, we might rotate a little bit one way or another in order to save, like, we're out there laying out these units and looking at the trees and the orientation, but it's not like they're gonna move to a different location. They're just, twisting a little here and there. And
Yep.
we're looking at the utility runs a little closer and how we're gonna deal with water and power, and then how it's going to get distributed. So there could be a few little
Minor changes.
underground utility lines that will be different. And if I didn't tell you, you wouldn't know, but I'll tell you. But it's in the rotation and
But that's the subdivision plan anyway. That's not the subdivision plan. That's the details and stuff.
the subdivision, the details show the underground utilities, but the subdivision plan will show the unit locations.
Yeah,
And so they may get, like I said, tweaked a little bit. We're just trying to make sure they're really oriented and fit on the land the right way.
Yeah.
Saving trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The biggest thing with this next meeting is that you have to go through the 20-some approval criteria that you may find in this packet.
Right.
So I just suggested you look at it and get some words ready, so this will save you
Well, we had a dress rehearsal last week with the,
We did have a dress rehearsal
You
Yeah.
just have to make formal.
Oh, well, right.
vote.
Yeah.
So it's gonna
on
be-
each and every one. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I guess I've got a housekeeping item that and this was,
I think
I'll wait for
30.
Jeannie to pay attention. That you had mentioned that once the applicants submit their final plan packet, then you advertise and there's a meeting. But as a planning board, we have sort of a regularly scheduled hearing date, right? So,
Planning board meetings are generally the first and third Tuesdays. or
so
Thursdays.
you'll adapt your notice to one of our regularly
Yes.
scheduled
They know
times.
when they need to submit to meet our
When we get
schedule.
it from them.
I'm new, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Regular meeting schedule.
And we should be getting back to our regular schedule now. The budget.
We are on the first Thursday.
Wednesday.
Could
Well,
we,
okay.
could we go to the second Thursday next month?
Do
Do we have an
whatever.
agenda for,
We don't have.
No,
any-
nothing on the agenda yet.
I feel like we've kind of used up some of our allotted time this month.
Boy, yeah.
Thank you, Will.
Thanks again,
Thank you.
everybody.
All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Easiest
We're
one.
done.
Question for you.
Yes.